Greetings! My longtime interest in astronomy inspired this video. Now, planet Saturn was named after the Roman god of agriculture, bounty, and other things, as was the day Saturday or Saturn's Day. Saturn lies at an average distance of 1.27 billion kilometers or 790 million miles from Earth. Even Jupiter, nearest planet to Saturn, is still 650 million kilometers or 400 million miles away. Now, while Earth is more or less 12,700 kilometers or 7,900 miles wide, Saturn is around 115,000 kilometers or 71,000 miles wide. I say more or less since their diameters vary. Saturn is very flattened. Even Earth is not perfectly round. Since Saturn is 9 times wider than Earth, if Saturn was hollow, 764 Earths could fit inside. That's because he's wider in 3 dimensions. The formula for calculating volumes of all spheres is radius cubed times pi times 4/3. The formula for calculating volumes of all cubes is width cubed. Saturn is unique among our solar system's planets in that he's estimated to be less dense overall than water, around 70% of water's density. Saturn has no solid surface. What's seen in pictures are masses of swirling gases. In fact, Saturn is 96% hydrogen and 3% helium. Liquids are deeper down. So instead of his amber, cream, gold, and pale yellow colors, he may be a much different color underneath. Then there's a presumably solid core, as all planets should have. Saturn takes 29 years to orbit our sun, but his day is only 10.7 hours long. A giant hurricane over 1,500 miles or 2,400 kilometers wide has raged non-stop on Saturn for years, seemingly locked around the planet's north pole. It, in turn, is surrounded by a giant hexagon-shaped rotating cloud pattern around 29,000 kilometers or 18,000 miles wide. Not only does this jet stream continue to have a decidedly hexagon shape, in 4 years, its color changed from greenish blue to golden tan. Scientists think they might have found its cause by replicating a miniature chemical hexagon in a lab. But that's necessarily the result of intelligent design by scientists. There's a theory called panpsychism, the belief that astronomical bodies are living, conscious, and possess some semblance of free will, which is what I subscribe to. Therefore, Saturn may be choosing to communicate or express himself by creating that extraordinary hexagon. Also, NASA recorded via spacecrafts the electromagnetic radiation given off by planets and converted them into the audible range of human ears. Some see this as the astronomical bodies singing their praises to God. The sounds of Saturn, which are generally considered most unusual and eerie, can be heard on various YouTube videos. Most of Saturn's sounds presumably come from his rings, and Saturn has by far the most pronounced rings of any heavenly body yet discovered. As for Saturn's rings, they are actually billions of particles, mostly of water ice, some of rock, which range from the size of sand grains to the size of houses. They orbit Saturn at high speed. Most scientists claim that Saturn got his incredible rings from comets, asteroids, or even a moonlet or 3 being caught in Saturn's very strong gravity, which then ripped them apart. Though there's undoubtedly much truth to scientific approaches, a big problem is that Jupiter, which is over twice Saturn's gravitational pull, has no such spectacular ring system. Jupiter's rings are so underdeveloped and minuscule in comparison, they're almost negligible. Then there are the problems of why Saturn and Jupiter didn't get absorbed into the Sun, get broken up to form rings around the Sun, etc., etc. Science is as far from explaining everything from a purely natural perspective as a dog is from explaining exactly how computers work. So instead of fighting the idea of intelligent design, we should be humbled by the vastness of creation, and also encouraged since our personal problems are so small by comparison. Then there's the issue of Saturn's 53 confirmed and named moons and 29 other likely candidates, which would total 82. That's much more than any other planet in our solar system, including bigger and more massive Jupiter. Titan is by far Saturn's largest moon and looks like the biggest moon in our solar system since his atmosphere bulges outward. In fact, Titan is the only moon in our solar system known to have an atmosphere. He looks like a giant orange from space. Titan is also the only known body in space beside Earth that's known to have stable bodies of surface liquid, specifically lakes of methane and ethane. They can exist as liquid despite extreme cold temperatures since the freezing point of these chemicals is far lower than water. Moon Iapetus is black on one side and white on the other. Small moon Enceladus has huge ice geysers blasting into space. Tiny moon Mimas has a giant crater named Herschel that's over a third as wide as the moon. An endless number of anomalies regularly defy all theories based on a supposed Big Bang, abiogenesis, and neo-Darwinian evolution. Some have tried to associate Saturn with Satan, arguing that the word Satan comes from the word Saturn, but that's completely unsubstantiated. Saturn probably came from the Latin Saturnus, an Indo-European god of agriculture, or likely Satus, which means sowing as in sowing seeds. Satan probably came from the Greek word Satanus, meaning adversary. Ancients thought Saturn was the farthest planet from our sun, which was associated with the principle of good. Saturn was therefore viewed as the celestial body least exposed to our sun's divine light and thus associated with evil, since evil was associated with coldness. But Saturn, being the farthest planet, is incredibly false, since we now know of exoplanets a million times farther than Saturn. And according to Christian scripture, Satan fell to earth, not Saturn. Revelation 12:9. And God is the sole creator, Satan merely a created being. Quoting Psalm 19:1-4. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament sheweth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night sheweth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world.